Welcome back to Season 2 of That's So Second Millennium, the Catholic Science Podcast, where we look forward to the new synthesis in the new millennium between faith, philosophy, and science. This is episode 87 of That's So Second Millennium. This week, I have to apologize. We have taken the route of doing our first greatest hits episode. This is in fact a rerun. This is a rerun of one of our very first interviews. Bill got an interview with Father Bob Spitzer as he was doing some radio work, and had the chance to talk to Father Spitzer way back in, sometime in 2018. It would have been, probably about two-thirds of the way, probably August or September. I don't remember exactly. We're doing this week because I have been deathly ill. Went to visit my brother for his birthday, and saw his family, and just got ludicrously sick yesterday, so blew away our ability to record a new episode for this week. This is a really good one, and the packaging is a little bit more professional this time around, so it's a small chance for me to see that, in fact, I think we've made some progress since early in the podcast. This is hopefully being delivered in a little bit more natural tone of voice than I gave the previous intro. So yeah, I'm grateful to have the chance to re-record that and repackage, because Father Bob Spitzer he's an interesting guy. You don't have to agree with everything he has to say to think that he is a fascinating guy and provocative, jabbing you in important places where you probably ought to be jabbed, and consider whether things are quite so cut and dried in the direction that you think that they're cut and dried. So with that, we'll go back to Bill and Father Spitzer, and this is actually an opportunity in the last few seconds here of thanking all of the people who've given us interviews since then, because a lot of amazing people have talked to the two of us on this little podcast, and we hope that it's worth something to you. So with that, back to Bill and Father Spitzer.
Well, we welcome Father Robert Spitzer to the interview here for our podcast. I bet a lot of our listeners are fans of Father Spitzer's Universe on the EWTN TV network. And in that program, Father Spitzer certainly explores a lot of the territory that our podcast explores, that intersection, not only between faith and reason, but science and religion. And Father might not know too much about our podcast, but we represent two lay people, I and my co-host Paul Giesting. We represent simply two lay people who, have always loved both faith and reason and seen it as essential to evangelization that the church can bring to improve the world, the human community. And we're curious about what next steps might lie ahead for that process. And Father, you're just very much on top of that. You're helping to lead the way. We'll talk about a new website with which you're helping to lead the way. But if I may, first of all, welcome very much, a very hearty welcome to our podcast. It's an honor to have you. And second, the whole idea of the intersection of faith and reason, integrating science and religion. It seems that it's of growing interest in many circles, from the education of high school students, education of high school teachers who then pass along that wisdom to students, plus, the evangelization and youth ministry communities who realize that we're losing all too many students, or we're losing a lot of the faith motivation of students by dint of their strong cultural exposure to scientific rationalism. And then, of course, just the church at large is pursuing this more and more energetically with help of organizations like your own Magis Institute. Am I right that this trend in exploring that intersection is growing and taking perhaps new paths that could be both signs of the urgency of the matter and also the hope for the future?
Absolutely. There's a couple of different things going on. But the last Pew survey, which was 2016, showed that about altogether, becoming agnostic, atheistic, some of them, etc.
Wow.
Now, some of them, just remain in a sort of agnostic apathy, but nevertheless, they become de facto unbelievers, or what the Pew Survey calls nuns, N-O-N-E-S.
Right.
And so, and that is really something different than we've seen in the past. A lot of the times we've seen in the last two generations, a lot of people have left the Catholic Church to join an evangelical church, or they've left the Catholic Church and then rejoined the Catholic Church after, a certain amount of time when they got through their teenage years, etc. This is very different. This is people leaving not only the church but religion, faith in God, leaving behind God.
Yeah.
And so this is a matter of real concern. The second thing is, yes, it has been accelerating, and the faith and science problem that you talked about, the Pew Survey in 2016 also had a follow-up survey asking these younger people, well, why did you leave the faith, or why are you thinking seriously about leaving faith altogether? And 50% of them, well, actually 49.2 or whatever it was, percent of them indicated that it was because of faith and science in particular. Not just faith and reason, though a lot of people did have faith and reason questions as well, but faith and science was right at the hub of why so many people were leaving. So yes, it's urgent. There's a misperception that there's a contradiction between faith and science when there really isn't. There's just a huge amount of evidence in favor of belief in God from a scientific perspective, and that's what we're trying to alleviate.
Yes, yeah. And do you think that this kind of gap was percolating for a long time and simply was not being addressed in Catholic schools around the country and perhaps in parishes, etc.? Or is there something in very recent years that accelerated it all the more? I wonder if such an understanding would help us to find a cure.
Well, the answer is yes. It's both.
Okay.
In other words, yes, it had been percolating for a long time. But I think with the new atheism coming out in the digital platform area, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, websites, etc., internet, the fact is there is a real push toward atheism in that arena, and just a lot of websites devoted to various dimensions of unbelief, and that strangely has accelerated some of the problem in the schools, and even now, even within some of our Catholic schools, we have teachers who almost science teachers maybe who profess agnosticism, not so much in the Catholic schools, but definitely in the public schools.
Yeah.
It starts in high school, and definitely in college. A lot of the kids will lose their faith. They have no answers. They have no evidence that contravenes what people are saying. Just these are hip shoot statements, but they have no evidence to respond to them, and it's a real problem.
Yes. And it's ironic, too, isn't it, that the new atheism to which they're responding, or at least certain books and certain authors reflecting the new atheism, they're actually presenting these young people and all people with a kind of atheism and a kind of reasoning or approach to reality that's actually even shallower and more misleading than older forms of atheism. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the arguments upon which the atheism is premised they're really pretty facile. But the point is they can be easily responded to, easily redressed, and that's what we're trying to do with CredibleCatholic.com. I mean, we're trying to get it in every confirmation program, every high school that we can. And we're currently operating in 78 archdioceses and dioceses throughout the nation. Right now, our trainers are helping to deploy over free of charge. Everything is free.
That's great.
For CredibleCatholic.com. Wow.
Yeah. And I've seen some of the video and kind of the it's verbal presentations that really clarify point by point everything that's being discussed. It seems very user friendly and learning friendly.
That's right. I mean, basically, we right now we're in 40% of the archdioceses and dioceses in the U.S.
Wow.
Obviously, we want to be in 100%, and we'd like to be in full deployment. Full deployment means in every confirmation class, catechetical class in high school that we can get it into. Realistically, we have a program for 7th through 9th grade, and we have another program for 10th grade and above. And some people actually use the 7th through 9th grade one for their 10th and 11th grade classes. Fine with us. Any way people want to use it. The material is there. It's highly graphic, and what it is, they're voiceover PowerPoints.
Right.
So you just all a teacher has to do is just download these 7 essential modules to his or her computer or laptop, right?
Right.
So you download it to your laptop. That's free of charge. All the, you just get on our website, CredibleCatholic.com, click on 7 essential modules, and then you can just download them right onto your computer. And all you need to do is hit the space bar, and the PowerPoint will start. The PowerPoints are read to you.
I see.
So, you've got, in the 10th grade and above version, you have some print, that's there, and some graphics, and some embedded videos.
Neat.
Whereas the 7th to 9th grade one, it's very graphical, and everything is auditory, so you hear it, but you're not reading it on the screen as well. But the point is, you don't have to do anything. You've got 2 nice, pleasant people reading these, the material and talking about science and the Shroud of Turin, or the latest scientific evidence for an intelligent creator, or near-death experiences and terminal lucidity and the evidence for a transphysical soul,
right.
or, 20th and 21st century miracles and, that have been scientifically validated, etc. And so all these things are there, which just offers this huge body of evidence.
Yeah.
You hit the space bar, it'll stop at every page. So each of the presentations is about, you think, well, 50 PowerPoint pages, that's a lot of pages. A PowerPoint page is not a lot of material, well, believe me.
Right.
So, it just hits it. It reads that page, it'll pause, or if there's an embedded video in there, you just play it. And each module is about 90 minutes each. But if you just get through those modules, just in the class, you can answer questions, or you can make it play continuously for longer, than a page. So you can have maybe 1 to 2 pages or 3 pages or whatever it may be. And it just goes right through it for you. You'll really, literally don't have to do anything. It'll even play the embedded videos automatically, so that it's very user friendly. There's a digital book online which you can print out, but it's a 120-page book that has all the summaries of the material and all the graphics and everything. It's all free, but if you want to buy the bound and paper version of that, it'll cost you $6.50.
That's not too bad.
For a 120-page book,
it really is.
Am I going to say so myself?
Amen, yes.
As they say, we're not making any whopping profit off of that.
It's a good investment in the future.
That's right. Investment in the future.
Yes.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah. But I like that idea of a very wide-ranging body of evidence being provided. Really resonates with me, because one of the things, kind of referring back to the critique of modern atheism, my impression is that maybe one reason that the atheism is so attractive now is that it's almost all kind of just it's not a wide-ranging body of evidence. It's in fact very kind of shallow and built on assumptions and labels and even mockery of the traditional understandings oftentimes. And it's the only way to perhaps convince these young people is to offer a multi-point approach to the value of faith and reason and science and religion.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly the point. And so, I have to tell you, the multi-point approach, it's like John Henry Cardinal Newman had this wonderful thing called an informal inference, and what he just said is, look, faith is not grounded on one set of evidence alone. It's grounded on about 20 different sets of independently validatable evidence.
Wow.
So you've got some proofs for the existence of God. You've got some scientific evidence directly for an intelligent creation. You have all the evidence of a transphysical soul from near-death experiences. You get all this evidence for the resurrection of Jesus emblazoned on the Shroud of Turin. You have all these miracles concerned with Mary, with the saints, with Eucharistic miracles that have been scientifically validated, etc. You have all that stuff, right? And what you do, and he says, look, when you put together, a variety of independently, validatable, scientifically validatable sets of evidence, it really forms the basis for a very solid judgment.
Yeah.
That, you can be a very scientific, reasonable person.
Right.
And have a ton of evidence for God, for Jesus Christ, even for the church itself. And so that's the point. And by the way, the approach itself has led to 97% positive and very positive rankings by the kids who've been beta tested in Austin, Texas, in New York, and in Los Angeles. 97% rated positive and very positive for fending off doubts, maintaining and defending their faith. So that's a huge deal. I mean, this is the kids. We don't coach them. They take their little surveys online completely anonymously, and we don't know who said what at all. And they can, as far as we're concerned, we just accumulate the data, or the computer accumulates the data, and very, very objectively. And most of them say they actually feel not only that they have much more evidence for their faith, but they are much better prepared to defend their faith to others.
Very nice. Yeah, and that's key, isn't it?
Yep.
That, it shouldn't just stop with each individual. We all have that missionary discipleship mission. Once we've learned it and grasped it, we should share it with others. You have to have that full body of wisdom, knowledge to share. And it also reminds me of something that I just became familiar with in the last few weeks, because a group called the Ratzinger Pope Benedict Vatican Foundation apparently has started giving awards for something they call expanded reason. And I had not heard that term before. I guess the whole point is that today's approach to reason is just so rationalistic and so positivistic and perhaps manipulatable, because it doesn't look at the big picture. Is the church realizing that it's time to evangelize on the basis of expanded reason?
Well, yeah, I mean, the church has been doing it, frankly, for years. And, let's face it, scientism has been around since, the Vienna Circle and the whole school of positivism going back to the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're dealing with like 1901, these guys are coming to to this country from Europe, and they're basically making an invalid supposition from the very beginning. They're saying all scientific all truths must be scientific truths. The only valid truths are those that are scientific.
Yeah.
Well, that statement itself, the only truth is scientific. That cannot be validated by science because science is empirical. It has to be validated by observational evidence, and it never can give you evidence for a universal. A universal means an all, or an only, or a none.
Right.
So when you have those three words, it's not possible to use those words and prove it scientifically, because the only kind of scientific proof is observational data, which can never, talk about only or all or none. It talks about some, and this one and that one that has been observed. So you basically have a self-refuting proposition. Now this goes all the way back to 1901. So the church has wrestled with this, pointed these things out again and again, and then we've been doing expanded reason, frankly, for centuries.
Interesting. Yeah, and
We really have been.
right. We have to recatechize and remind Catholics and non-Catholics alike that this is not some kind of new approach invented by the Vatican or something. It's
That's right, exactly.
time tested.
This
Yeah.
has been, it's the complaint of the whole philosophical community. One time I was, having a little, shall we call it, an animated discussion on Larry King's show.
I remember that.
Stephen Hawking, Leonard Mladenov, and
Right.
Deepak Chopra.
Wow.
And one of the things that the contentions that came up, during the show, was, Stephen's contention, in his book, The Grand Design, that somehow science had replaced philosophy. Well, science can't replace philosophy because, as I just said, scientific truths all have to be grounded in observational data.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are a million other truths, like in mathematics. Mathematics is not science. Mathematics is a completely different discipline that's based, on axioms and so forth. Metaphysics, logic, none of those things, which are all embraced by philosophy, are not embraced by science. So the proposition from the very beginning is crazy.
That's
So we're dealing with it again and again and again, where, people try to narrow down the whole range of validatable truths to those that are scientific or observational or whatever. And of course, it's a self-refuting proposition from the very, very start.
Amazing. Yeah. And then lastly, the other paradox or contradiction that I think I see out there now more than ever is that at the same time that so much of our culture and unfortunately too much of our educational system is dumbing down this interaction between faith and reason and science and religion and all, there is a strong and growing community of Catholic scientists, in fact, and of other people, perhaps, right? That they realize that, hey, there's reason to look for synergies here rather than to look for the division between these qualities.
Stephen Barr Dr. Stephen Barr, who's at the University of Delaware Physics Department, has started, a wonderful society of Catholic scientists.
Yeah, that's exciting.
All of them have PhDs in a scientific discipline, and it's grown, like in its first year, to 700 members right away. Last time I looked, it was at 700 members.
Wow.
And it's just skyrocketing, frankly, and they really have these wonderful conferences now where they're putting together the thoughts of so many people just in this area of faith and science, not just in the area of physics, which is more my specialty, but also in the area of biology and also chemistry and even the earth sciences, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really taken off beautifully. And we can expect to see a lot of that flow over into the pedagogy for the high schools and the colleges as well.
One would think that as these young people are challenged and, they're presented first with this compatibility, and then if they're challenged to apply both faith and reason to the real interesting scientific advancements and challenges that we're going to be confronting and already are confronting as a world, everything from artificial intelligence to global change. There are huge issues that we kind of inherently admit we obviously are not handling very well by science alone. Is there maybe that's one source of hope that we're going to realize, hey, we need to bring to bear every intellectual and faith resource in order to just make sure that we're not going off the tracks in some very bad way.
Yeah. Well, artificial intelligence will probably reach its limit intrinsically.
Really?
Because, it really, to talk about a truly creative artificial intelligence is, it's not really happening. There are obviously very, very fast-paced computers that process all kinds of algorithms in remarkable ways with remarkable degrees of complexity in programming. No question about that. But really the idea of discovering a new mathematical theorem or a new scientific theorem through a computer alone without, literally a human being giving it every step of the process.
Yeah.
That isn't going to happen. And, there was a mathematician named Kurt Gödel, who actually had a proof. It was an incompleteness theorem, but essentially what it shows is that algorithmically based programmable intelligence can never come to mathematical solutions and creative discoveries in the same way that human intelligence does. And in fact, speaking of Stephen Barr, there's a nice little proof of that in Stephen Barr's book called Modern Physics and Ancient Faith. And if people like that book, it's Notre Dame University Press.
Indeed.
It's about 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, I've heard it really raved about, that it's a really great book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and that might be something to start with. There's a nice little section on there on Gödel's proof, and I think that you're probably going to reach an intrinsic limit to, what the creative level that computers can get to. The other thing, of course, is computers do not love in the sense that we do.
Yeah.
They do not have a sense of goodness or a sense of conscience or a sense of justice like we do. They don't have a sense of aesthetics or beauty like we do, and they certainly don't have a sense of spirituality, God, or transcendence that we do. And so when you get right down to it, they lack all the major transcendental desires and awareness. Computers are just really pretty, flat. Now, they are quick, but in terms of having the breadth of, beauty and aesthetics and spirituality and religion and conscience and goodness and a sense of love and empathy, as they say in New York, forget about it.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So, and moreover, they're not ever going to be creative in mathematics or metaphysics or logic in the way that we are. Yes, the application of the equations or the logical formulae that we give them, yes, they can be incredibly rapid and quick, etc. But in terms of breadth and depth, as they say, forget about it.
And if students truly want to be both creative and entrepreneurial, as well as to have their inherent demands, those demands cited by St. Augustine, right? That God-sized hole in our parts that needs to be filled, right? If they're looking for goodness, justice, and beauty, they're going to wind up looking for something beyond science anyway.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a wonderful poll or survey that was done by the American Psychiatric Association a while back in 2004. This Dr. Kanita Dervik and 10 other psychiatrists did a very long-standing, I think it was 11 years of study or something, and they published it in the American Psychiatric Association. It's free online, by the way. Just put suicide rates and non-religious affiliation into Google, and you can get this free of charge. But anyway, they did this poll, and what did they find? Mm-hmm. They found that non-religiously affiliated people, by comparison with religiously affiliated people, so these are the non-religiously affiliated people, had much higher suicide rates, much higher suicide attempts, much higher depression and malaise, much higher impulsivity, much higher aggressivity, much higher substance abuse, much higher familial tensions than the religiously affiliated comparable group. Now, if you look at that and you get all the other factors out, so you have just as many people from economic, level 1 and economically level 2, economic level 2, 3, 4, 5, and you got as many people from the religiously affiliated, non-religiously affiliated groups in there for not just that, but educational background, same thing. You can eliminate all these other possible causes. And when you've got it sort of narrowed down to religious affiliation versus non-religiously affiliated, boy, I'll tell you, the religiously affiliated people are much more fulfilled, much higher sense of dignity, destiny, and happiness, right? Much higher sense of, obligation, responsibility to others, etc. I mean, there's just no question, religion is needed to fill the God-sized hole in our hearts.
Yeah. Well, so closing up just by looking forward, then, especially given that urgency that's implied in statistics like you just cited, it's obvious that we need to take a number of steps, and one of them is very much that website, the Credible Catholic website. Please give our listeners the URL for that again. Is it Credible Catholic?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just hit crediblecatholic.com. Put it in any search engine.
Right.
Crediblecatholic.com. And then it will. When you get to the site, just click on 7 essential modules.
Okay.
If there's a big red button right in front, just click on that. And you can download them to your computer. You can view them all by yourself free of charge. You can print out the digital book. And if you have if your diocese is interested in this, if you're a catechism teacher, etc., or you're a confirmation teacher, a high school teacher, and you're interested in this, just give us a call at the number right there on the website, and we will help you get in contact with your diocesan associate who's in charge of that. If we're already there in the diocese, if not, we would sure appreciate your help in getting into your diocese. But I think we actually are starting to deploy right now. We're doing teacher trainings in Fort Wayne, right in your
wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll try to find out more about that and be able to direct listeners directly to a different, more specific resource, locally.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And I know that at Notre Dame, Dr. Cavadini and all, they have workshops that they're setting up for high school teachers and that makes sense too, I guess, just to get the science and religion teachers together in schools to make sure that they're not teaching students in completely isolated silos that almost instruct the students that these two things don't fit together.
Absolutely, and so I do think we have to bring them together and give the really rich treasures from both areas of faith, and science, and that openness that leads to the kind of idea of a university that John Henry Newman talked about.
Ah, very good point. Yes, yeah. The need is not new. The insight is not new, and the Catholic Church has a lot of that time-tested wisdom. And we can certainly point people to the Magis Center's website as well, right? The resources are even more ample there, right?
Resources,
yeah.
And that's magiscenter.com.
Very good. Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for being part of the answer to some pretty sophisticated and challenging and urgent problems in how our society is approaching knowledge.
And my pleasure, Bill, and happy to do it anytime.
Thank you very much, Father. All the best in all of your work. Thank you for your being an instrument of the Holy Spirit in all of these matters. Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode or one of our previous episodes, please leave us a review on iTunes. iTunes is the biggest distributor of podcasts, and having reviews there will help us reach a wider audience. We would also love it if you posted your review on other services like Google Play and Stitcher as well.